I've avoided the visual here because, of course, I don't have the budget. Unlike the entity to which Katy Perry is singing in her song. It's essentially a song about marrying for money and power, and marrying not so much a person as an institution that has immense resources and can build monuments of the sorts she alludes to, penis-shaped monuments that are immensely expensive, like pyramids and obelisks and corporate headquarter skyscrapers and so on. I think these are really the things she's talking about in terms of the peacock. They're intangible powers as well, real centers of religious power, cultural power. All the symbols, and there are multitudes of meanings of symbols of the word peacock that are alluded to, have to do with royalty of the early Christian church, whose symbol was the peacock in some cases, and that peacock was chosen because it had all these features on its feathers which looked like an all-seeing eye, or a multitude of all-seeing eyes. And this, of course, echoes the all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid on the back of the U.S. $1 bill, which is supposed to be a Masonic symbol, and supposed to be a symbol of people who wanted to enlighten and free the American populace from the influences of organized religion. How do I put all this together? Well, there's a certain confluence of dates which are hinted at in Katy Perry's pose that goes along with the Peacock song. It appears on her CD, I presume, and it's a picture that some people have displayed in their recordings of the Peacock song you can listen to on YouTube. Katy Perry is shown in an asymmetrical, sacrificial pose. A very strange pose for someone to adopt in a song that's about, presumably, sexual, physical beauty. She has her right arm bare, turned upwards so that she can place her right hand against the side of her cheek and neck. Her left arm is adorned with various things. It's got arm bracelets, and her fingers have some things like rings on them. And that's over her left breast. As people have noted, this makes her breasts look more asymmetrical than they otherwise would likely do. So there's a contradiction in the way this image presents itself. It contradicts one of the basic precepts of what we are supposed to consider beautiful, which is symmetry. The two sides are deliberately made to look different, but they are showing the same thing in opposite ways. Her left side has a multitude of crosses on a necklace hanging around her neck, which should symbolize sacrifice in traditional Christian terms. Her right side is a strange gesture which is supposed to be a code for the Masonic or Illuminati gesture of sacrifice, which is something that's noted in an essay on the meaning of eyes wide shut, occult symbols in the movie. And this is a gesture made in pictures showing Tom Cruise as the actor in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and also showing Alan Greenspan doing this gesture of putting your hand to the side of your throat and cheek. So a gesture of sacrifice by an undressed woman. And I think this has to do with, because there are all these Illuminati references in the song, such as rainbows, which are mind control programming symbolism, to a marriage ceremony, which supposedly takes place once every 28 years, called the Feast of the Beast. And this last one had taken place in 53 or 54, according to an essay by a man named Springmeyer on the internet. And the next one was due to take place in 2009 or 2010. Katy Perry, and within this year-long Feast of the Beast, there is a shorter ceremony, which has a marriage of a woman, presumably a virgin, to Lucifer or the Beast. And this smaller part of the year-long ceremony occurs around September 5th to 7th. When Katy Perry released her talk on YouTube about her description of Peacock, it was released on September 7th, 2010, which would place it in the middle of this marriage ceremony in the year of the Feast of the Beast. Now, the Beast, according to Springmeyer's essay, is associated with various things that have to do with the number 28. It's a numerological and astrological reference having to do with the product of two perfect numbers, 4 and 7. You're both supposed to symbolize perfection. And this number 28 is associated with a number of things that occur in the Peacock video. The peacock itself, the peacock and the rainbow, the unicorn, which comes up when several of the themes from Peacock are echoed in the Wide Awake video. The 28 is also associated with clouds and artificial glass that look like them, and you can see these in California Gurls and also the Wide Awake video. It's also associated with a three-headed creature with the heads of a man, a bull, and a ram, which is almost perfectly echoed in the Wide Awake video because she has to escape three versions of horned or horny males who exist essentially for breeding purposes. There's one that looks like a minotaur. I thought originally there were two minotaurs in the Wide Awake video, but one has a ring in his nose and has a different joint down his skull than the other. The one with the ring in his nose has eye portions of the skeleton which don't protrude as far. The other one has more prominent eye structures, no ring in the nose, and looks a little more like either a sheep or a goat. More likely a goat because of the way the horns curve. If it weren't for that difference, then you would have the symbol of the beast embodied in these three different male figures. So there's almost a perfect correspondence there. Also, their number 28 is associated with victory, power, achieving a certain goal. As is the rainbow in the symbolism of mind control programming. People who are mind controlled are supposed to always follow the rainbow, supposedly. And this occurs in Peacock lyrics, where the woman has followed the rainbow to the treasure, which is identified with the man's reproductive organs. It's a strange reversal, because usually women's genitals are referred to as their treasure. And there are many other genital reversals or gender reversals in the picture associated with Peacock as well. Katy Perry is essentially a hermaphrodite. She's given, in her performances of the song, she wears the peacock feathers, which presumably occur only on the male of the peahen species. So she's wearing a male feature by putting on these feathers and by having them behind her in the picture that goes with the CD. She's also shown with these curving blue decorative feather-like features reaching toward her genital region. So she's given these peacock feather features, which look a little bit like fallopian tubes or make a V shape. It's the classic symbolic shape of the womb. But they're male features, so in a way she's given both male and female genitals. This is a feature of the Baphomet, which is something which is supposed to be a central symbol in the Illuminati symbolism scheme. This is a goat-like creature, and you can see something like its face in one of the pictures in one of the YouTube videos of Peacock. So this is a strange idea of our usual concept of beauty. It's the idea that you can bring two opposites together and they'll make something like the Philosopher's Stone, which is also associated with the peacock, which is the idea of having wealth and also eternal youth and resurrection and all these other things that religion is supposed to promise. In the end, this is largely a song, I think, paradoxically, about ugliness, about something that looks good and that people pursue and fight wars over and sacrifice everything for, which ultimately is not worth the price paid. There's a repetition, much like in E.T., only it's the opposite. In E.T., you have sex as a weapon, essentially, and the narrator says, kiss me. There's this repetition of military, gunfire sounds. In Peacock, it's the opposite. You get the repetition of the K sound, but at the end of the word rather than the beginning, or as well as at the beginning. Peacock, cock. And cock, aside of its meanings of male genitalia, also has to do with loading a weapon so that you can fire it. Yeah, so it's a little bit like a weapon of mass distraction. People see the overt sexual meaning of the song, and they're distracted by the picture and looking at Katy Perry's barely covered breasts. But there are many other meanings involved. One of them, ironically, is that when you just say cock, the cock is a symbol, among other things, of Jesus. So she's referring to both this feast of the beast, what is presumably a marriage to the enemy of Jesus, and a marriage to Jesus at the same time. So, once again, we have this feature of these two opposites. And you might see that there's a fake war being fought between the two sides. The Illuminati is blamed for funding wars and financing both sides that turn one against the other. But the people who say how evil the Illuminati is seem to also be falling for the same stratagem. They're fighting a war between Christians and the Luciferians, and they're saying everything's, the Luciferians are doing all this stuff. But they also seem to be promoting two different and yet virtually identical sun worship religions that are fighting each other. So there's a lot of, I would say, ugliness in the song, ironically. There's a lot of repetition, the same note used over and over, and not varied very much. And it shows people essentially on a sexual track that they have not escaped from, which leads to war and deception and imagining that we're getting enlightenment or immortality simply because we've got a symbol that looks good.